Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to now invite Yang Amat Berhormat Dato Seri DiRaja Dr. Zambry Abd Kadir, the Right Honourable Menteri Besar of Perak Darul Rizwan, to deliver his opening address. Please welcome.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Selamat pagi. Salam satu Malaysia. Salam Perak Aman Jaya. Distinguished guests, speakers, and participants. First and foremost, let me wish you all a warm welcome to Malaysia, and in particular the state of Perak Darul Rizwan. In line with the theme of good governance for inclusive wealth, I hope you will avail yourself of the opportunities to exchange ideas, information, and experience in this inaugural edition of the Perak International Development Dialogues. I certainly look forward to refreshing and inspirational ideas in this direction. I believe that ideas are the essence of human progress. Gone are the days when political contestations are seen through the build of muscle flexings and smearing your political foes through character assassinations. It is human nature. People long for ideas, ideas that permeate human activities, that help us develop creative and innovative efforts to make better our everyday life. When we cherish ideas, it will gradually lead to the creation of a knowledge society. Quoting Joseph Stiglitz in his new book, Creating a Learning Society, he postulates the notion that what truly separates developed from the less developed countries is not just a gap in resources or output, but also a gap in knowledge. In fact, the pace at which developing countries grow is largely a function of the pace at which they close that gap. What is? It answers the skeptic. Why the state, and that means the state of Perak, has to go this far to organize this ambitious event, given the fact that it is only a state. As such, I must congratulate all participants from all over the country who are here today in support of these efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by putting into perspective how these two concepts of good governance and inclusive wealth come about. I shall begin with inclusive wealth first. The clarion call for inclusive wealth was first heard in 2012 at the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, also known as the Rio +20. Inclusive wealth, in a nutshell, is the outcome of the search for a credible measure that extends beyond gross domestic products, or GDP, or more recently, the Human Development Index, or HDI, as our primary indicator of progress, if we want to achieve true sustainable development. Neither the GDP nor the HDI reflect the state of the natural environment, and both focus on the short term, with no indication of whether current well-being can be sustained. It is argued that we are actually using an insufficient measurement approach to guide policy makings. This is where the Inclusive Wealth Index, or IWI, for Malaysians who are very familiar with IW, so please do not confuse with IWK. Enters the pictures of the Rio Plus 20, which provide a metric of measurement for sustainable development, while GDP and the HDI are based on a flow concept. Inclusive wealth relies on the stock of different assets, that is natural capital, such as natural resources, land and ecosystem services, and etc., produced capital, such as machineries, buildings, etc., and human capital, such as education, health, skills, and etc., which make up the productive base of a country. The IWI is not intended to answer all of our decision makers' questions, but it can provide further and deeper insight about the use of assets over time. As with all new concepts, inclusive wealth, which leads to the formulation of the IWI, does not come out of the blue. Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, once again, for instance, has opined that once serious inequality of income and wealth, brought about by market forces and political machination, reaches a crescendo where it no longer becomes sustainable, a number of socio-economic political effects will occur. This includes slower economic growth, sluggish business, and lower GDP, recession, unemployment, and greater instability, and the chilling effects on democracy and the justice system. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to dwell on the much debated theme that is good governance. On this issue, I would like to share the thought of His Royal Highness, the Sultan of Perak, our Sultan, who recently said that to achieve internal cohesion and resilience, peace and prosperity, practicing good governance need to be the first order of the day. No numbers of vision statements, development plans or policies can work when the essentials of good governance are not present. It is only with good governance will countries be able to make the giant leaps needed to lift their populations out of the cycle of violence, underdevelopment, and poverty. Issues related to good governance and wealth distribution are becoming more complex and challenging. We witness the corporate scandals and subsequent collapse of global multinational companies who have fallen into bankruptcy and ceased to exist. A particular case is probably, for our reference, is Enron, a multinational global energy company which was declared bankrupt and ceased to exist due to bad governance, report of conflict of interest, manipulation of accounting loopholes, fraudulent audit report, and mismanagement of assets, and more swept through much of the financial world like wildfire. It is hard to believe that a huge company like Enron could fall into bankruptcy, leaving behind billions of dollars in debt, thousands jobless, losses for its investors. The fall of Enron has reminded us that one would and could face very disastrous consequences in the absence of good governance. Other examples of corporate collapse with dire consequences include multinationals such as Pacific Gas and Electric Company, WorldCom, Arthur Andersen, Lehman Brothers, Bernstein, AIG, and dozens others. That, ladies and gentlemen, are cases of bad governance. Now, let's look at a case of good governance. Among some countries, a case worth sharing is Turkey, which was once in a desperate condition and on the verge of socio-economic collapse. A country of two continents, Turkey is now set to become a major world power, both politically and economically. Ironically, 12 years earlier, the country was Europe's messy economic backwaters. The nation's economy was deteriorating. Inflation hit double digits. The values of its currencies depreciated to the lowest level ever, and the country inherited large sums of debt. That was the Turkey before. But today, the country has totally changed since. The Turkish economy is being touted as one of the top performing economies in the world. Inflation has been brought down to a single digit. The currency has gotten stronger, and a huge chunk of the nation's debts have been paid off. This could not happen merely by accident. The Turkish government has proven that with good governance, one could be able to fix and overcome the nation's critical problems, while at the same time bring hope of a better future for the people. In the case of Malaysia, the Najib administration is fully committed to pursuing quality governance and integrity to make Malaysia more competitive. To this end, he initiated some bold initiatives, such as enacting the Whistleblower Protection Act, National Integrity Plan, the introduction of key performance indicators for the public sector, and establishing the Malaysian Institute of Integrity. He encouraged greater engagement and interaction to convince the Malaysian public that the government is working for them. As he always said, gone are the days when the government knows best. As such, key attributes such as resolve, dedication, commitment, and political will are required to do what is needed. He admits that much needed to be done, as it is a tough job to combat corruption, abuse of power, and complacency in bureaucracy. These examples provide us with very good key learning points. That is, without good governance, ladies and gentlemen, you and your organization could perish. Whereas, with good governance, you could bring your organization and country to great prosperity. The future will be shaped by both good policies and implementation, as well as sound governing values and principles. Ladies and gentlemen, on this auspicious event, let me briefly share the Perak experience. When I was appointed to lead the government of Perak in 2009, during, as you all know, that is during the period of unprecedented political and constitutional crisis, many questions came into my mind. Questions like, can I really lead and bring back the people's trust and confidence in the ruling party despite the mounting challenges to the government and its governance? Number two, why my ruling party is losing its popularity despite many efforts of progress and development? And I further question myself, why was Perak lagging behind compared to Penang and Selangor? I think maybe Dr. Kawaguchi, you would like to know, where is Penang located? It is in the north and one in the south. We are being sandwiched in the middle between the two dominant states. Despite Perak, Tan Sri is here, you know, being a Perakian yourself, you know, despite being the wealthiest being the wealthiest state in the country, the next question I posed, why were the state GLCs underperforming? Why poverty still exists? And how can we eradicate it? Number four, how to provide more opportunities to the people in terms of quality and quantities. Next question, does the present model of development require reassessment, require rethinking? Why bureaucracy has not changed the system of governance? Why the north, the northern Perak, is less developed than the south and central Perak? The next question is, why the state EXCO meeting, our state cabinet meetings, held only every 2 weeks? Now, the point is that, can I actually deliver all this? How am I going to answer all these questions to fulfill the people's aspiration? These were among the questions that were lingering in my mind at the beginning of my tenure. Basing on this question, I moved into office together with my team. They are all here this morning, with the determination, vigor and resilience, and we began addressing the issues of development and governance in Perak. First, we set up a state-based think tank called IDR, Institute Darul Ridwan, to help formulate policies and review existing models on development. This helped gather more creative and innovative ideas. Second, we intended to become a developed state by 2020. We launched the Perak Amanjaya Master Plan, a vision for comprehensive transformation to ensure an inclusive and sustainable economic development. This vision outlines 7 main thrusts, namely, 1, equitable development and distribution. Number 2, skilled, ethical and knowledgeable society. Number 3, strong, catalytic and inclusive government. Number 4, network of infrastructure and public facilities. Number 5, participative use and social harmony. Number 6, vibrant public sector. And number 7, eco-friendly and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a good start. And then we discovered some stumbling blocks. Before I took office, the state convened normally the Executive Council's meetings for every fortnightly. And I was baffled to find that there were thousands of files, applications, requests, notifications, etc., etc. Stack of them piling and lying in some corners, unanswered, unfinished. I realized that to be an effective government, we have to rid ourselves of these inefficient practices. Systems and procedures need to be improved. So we started to have our EXCO meetings or cabinet meetings, state cabinet meetings every week. From that day onwards, I'm happy to announce that we have successfully cleared more than 15,000 files at the EXCO levels, and there are no more backlog files. But of course, they are very painful sometimes, because if we have to sit from 10 until 6 o'clock in the evening. I don't know whether there is any other states having their EXCO's meeting from 10 to 6. But of course, that was a clarion call for all of us. We have to do it. We have to finish off the backlog file. Thanks God, now we don't have the backlog file anymore. Next, rebranding our approach with the people. Because sometimes we feel that we are very distant from the people. How to get close back to the people? So we come up with the ideas of 3F. 3F. So you have to understand, not 4F, 3F. That is field. That is field. In the Malay word we call padang. Feel, you feel it. And you fix. We cut long red tapes of bureaucracy. We went directly to the field to meet with the people, listen to their grouses and suggestions, and find solution to fix their problem. If possible, then and there. No more long waiting period for the people, and at the same time elevating the standard of public delivery system in the state. On the issue of poverty, we set up the Yayasan Bina Upaya. There is the foundation for the capacity building, or commonly called YBU. This foundation is our answer to poverty alleviation and community capacity building program. The programs under YBU do not only address material poverty, but also the poverty of the mind by providing means, a paradigm leap to the target groups to enable them to escape from the vicious grip of poverty. These programs include the microcredit scheme, building and rebuilding homes, food basket or food boxes, we call it food boxes, mobile grocery, food kiosks and stalls for the poor, the Arrahnu upon brooking scheme, and numerous others. Our state JLC in the meantime faced critical levels of survival. Most of them were dependent on the government to provide assistance in the form of assets and land. We finally decided for a total restructuring. Now, our Perak Water Board has emerged as the best managed water company in the country. Our State Agriculture Development Corporation, or SADC, is independently run with increased profit annually. Our State Economic Development Corporation, or SADC, now has begun to set new emergence. In creating a more democratic atmosphere, we formed several bipartisan committees consisting members from both political divide for addressing public interest. You can see some of the opposition members also are here this morning, because we call them to, we have one member here, so I can recognize one of them here. For example, the issues relating to sand extraction in the state was seen as lacking transparency. We decided to form a committee consisting of both members from the ruling government and the opposition. Public transportation is another example. Solving of problems of drug addiction is yet another. Apart from these, there is a long list of our success story that is testimony of good governance and inclusive wealth. For instance, in 2012, we recorded a 7.1% economic growth, the third highest in the country. What I'm saying is, well, the third is not really the third, because we achieved a similar growth with Malacca. They're 7.1. And there are 4 states considered the highest economic growth, or GDP, in 2012. Selangor, Wilayah Persekutuan, Malacca, and Perak. Ladies and gentlemen, this dialogue has indeed a vital role to play in generating ideas, not only for the state, but also for the country and the world at large, with the singular purpose of bringing together a number of subject matters experts in various fields. It serves as an intellectual platform to exchange information and share experiences. Nevertheless, there is always room for more in a dialogue such as the Perak International Development Dialogue, where knowledge, experience, and information converge and shared, represents an excellent roadmap towards a better future via good governance. Moving forward, I believe that the idea of development should not stagnate or remain static. It should, on the other hand, be in a dynamic state, constantly evolving, which requires the process of continuous learning. That is, learn, unlearn, and relearn, which, with your presence, will help us create a better place for our generation to live on this planet we call Earth. Finally, I shall once more welcome all to the state of Perak. I would like to thank the organizers and the sponsors for choosing this panoramic location, and thank all distinguished guests, speakers, and participants for traveling to our beautiful state. I hope that you will enjoy your stay here. Please take the opportunity to tour the island of Pankor, the place where I was born, and share your beautiful memories here with all your loved ones upon your written home. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang Amat Berhormat Dato Seri, and please kindly remain on stage for the launch. On that note, I'd like to invite Dr. Mazlan Khamis to the stage to hand over to Yang Amat Berhormat Menteri Besar, the stylus, to initiate the launch of PIDD 2014. Dato Seri, before the launch, can be posed for the media. Thank you. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Perak International Development Dialogue 2014 is officially launched. Thank you, Yang Amat Berhormat Dato Seri DiRaja Dr. Zambry Abd Kadir.